and that's naming it and changing it, addressing the power imbalance present in research with care leavers. Róisín, Natalie, Annie, John, Paul, and Petra. You can also present yourself and your project.
Hello, everyone. You're welcome. Sorry, I just realized I might have to turn on my camera first before I share. So hopefully you can all see this.
Yes, we see it. It's not in slideshow, but yeah, fine, thanks.
Perfect. Okay, thanks, Inger. So you're so welcome to our presentation today. I don't know if we got the best draw or the last draw or whatever it was coming forth and having to present to you at all different times. Luckily, it's only 2:30 on a Friday here for me, so I'm going to take this one for the team. My colleagues and co-authors are here as well. So Annie and JP are here as far as I'm aware, and Petra unfortunately couldn't make it, but they would probably turn on their cameras at the end, so you get a glance of them anyway. So really just to go a little bit about ourselves first, in terms of the authors themselves, just to give you a bit of a background on this piece itself. Annie holds a master's degree from Harvard and recently completed her PhD at Sheffield Hallam University. She's an adjunct professor in the School of Nursing at the University of British Columbia and has been an executive director as well. She's based in Vancouver, British Columbia. The Society is a non-profit organisation committed to improving the health of youth through community-based research. And she has operated the Youth Research Academy, which Annie co-founded herself in 2016. So the Academy trains youth with experience of the government care systems to conduct research projects of interest to young people in and from government care, and with statutory and non-statutory organisations that serve them as well. In terms of JP, so JP is an assistant professor of social work at California State University. He also has a PhD, and he uses his positive youth development and capital development theories to demonstrate how youth thrive despite unaddressed systematic issues that contribute to negative outcomes in adulthood. He also examines how these systems perpetuate structural violence by reinforcing systematic oppression. And his goal is to improve practice and policy by identifying institutional level barriers that inhibit healthy development for youth. Aside from that, he works as a researcher, and JP is involved in community and political advocacy efforts to improve the child welfare system. Finally, like myself, he's also a care leaver who transitioned out of California foster care system. Petra, who isn't here today, unfortunately, but some of you may know her from presenting recently at Eurosaf, is a PhD candidate at Royal Holloway, University of London, and she's currently researching the influencing factors of suicidal ideation among care experienced adults in England and Germany. So as a German social worker, psychosocial counsellor and mediator, she works with psychiatric services for children and adolescents and youth welfare in Germany and England. And her professional interest lies on the intersection between social work, out-of-home care and clinical psychology. And just a fun fact on her as well, she had joined INTRAC and became a court member in 2019. And then myself, as some of you may recognise me already, I am Dr. Róisín Farragher. I recently completed my PhD with UNESCO Child and Family Research Centre in NUI Galway, so it's on the west coast of Ireland. And my research was looking at family and how care experience to young people, so those 18 to 23-year-olds group. Here we have in Ireland, we have aftercare, so those in that group, how they see and understand family. So what it means to be part of a family relationship, when do they join a family, what activities are involved, and so on. So that was my most recent piece of research. When we initially met, we kind of realised that there was a need for this chapter in terms of looking at the background and objectivity position in research that we take as researchers and what we bring. And in the care literature, it's not talked about as much, ironically in some way, but in other literature, in most qualitative pieces, it's there about the reflexivity and the position of the researcher and the subject, but it's not talked about as much in terms of care leaving research. And also then this kind of forgotten beginning and end is also important. So a lot of the time, research tends to focus on that middle parts of the analysis and how we can include young people. You know, once the research questions are set, how can we do that? Can we do it through pilot phases and so on? But a lot of the time, the beginning, so the real kind of design piece, and the end, to which some of the presentations already had speaked about there, and thinking about different things, is forgotten about. And it is about really about how we can improve those relationships as a researcher, bringing something into the practical experience around the care system as well, for those who have been subjected to the care system and have a lot of decisions already made for them and have been subjected to this imposition on themselves in a way. And then the third part of the kind of why we kind of saw this as well is if you have dual roles or if you have dual identity, like myself and JP, and you are a care leaver, but also now care leaving researcher, there comes with it a couple of tricky parts. So it comes with it reflections on how you manage expectation and hope of care leavers, how you might be seen as an advocate, how you might be seen as on this insider outsider continuum, and sometimes that changes and sometimes that brings with the challenges as well. So we were hoping to put a bit of a uniqueness into this and kind of have a little bit of commentary at the end of the chapter on our reflections as care leavers, but now also care leaving researchers. So just to give you just a kind of quick overview of the chapter outline that we hope to present is around the position piece. So again, the chapter is pretty much set into the section of in the beginning, so the pre-design interface with the end and the forgotten end of dissemination and what actually happens after that and within that process itself. So we've tried to kind of not focus too much on the middle where the analysis and where the kind of middle part takes place with young people involved, but rather the real starting point and the real ending point, and how we can ensure care relationships and care pieces are I suppose appropriate, and you know that the young person feels that it's not tokenistic, that it's not that they're only being invited in just to give their opinion and give their experience and that's it, and bye, good luck, that they are minded in that process. So when we talk about in the beginning, really here we're looking at to address some of the sensitive topics and how we might do that as researchers, but also to protect ourselves as researchers within that. So we may be insiders in some cases, and how we can protect ourselves from secondary trauma. The forming trusting relationships with gatekeepers is also really important in terms of addressing their concerns about the safety of the research and possible concerns that might come up around disclosures and so on, and how we might do that as well to protect the care experience young person from that starting point. Involving obviously care leavers in the research design itself and how participatory approaches and research is possible in that case. So we will be talking about our own kind of learnings and our own kind of experience in this previously, and what challenges we've come up against and what kind of we might offer as a means to address those challenges. Again, consulting to review the research tools and implementing their feedback. So again, we're talking about a little bit in that design piece, and the introductory contact we've also noted as really important because it's an opportunity to inform a longer relationship and start building rapport immediately from the first instance. And especially with gatekeepers who may like to offer some young people up quicker for recruitment rather than others. And so we also want to kind of clarify questions and get to know each other within that process, to offer participants to ask questions about the researcher and establish a more balanced approach in that sense, and to allow participants to make informed decision about their level of participation also. And so in the end, then we're concerned about reasons why youth are least likely to be involved in the stages of process in itself. to identify and address potential challenges of engaging with youth in this data collection, analysis, writing and dissemination piece. We'll be talking about the benefits of including young people in post-data collection phases of the research itself, and providing a case study of successfully creating sustained and meaningful participation of young people with care experience in this process at the end as well. I suppose overall then we're obviously going to give conclusions and recommendations for future research when it comes to this piece. We will have our learnings from previous research, but I suppose this also will include the commentary from 2 care leavers who are now care leaving researchers. So that also will give a kind of a balance to, the understanding of what might go on in a care leaver's mind who is now a care leaving researcher as well. And we're hoping to create some sort of checklist or practical takeaway that researchers can go and visit and see, actually, before I sit down to carry out this research, have I considered X, Y, and Z? Have I done this, that, and the other, and come back to it as they're carrying out research, and towards obviously the end and the dissemination piece, and seeing, have I done this, and is it carried out to an ethical kind of standing as well? So I suppose without keeping you too much longer, we were hoping to get some feedback from you all in this group as well around if the not considering of the during part and the analysis might be confusing to readers. So considering we're looking at the really, really beginning and the quite end, would that be confusing? Also the pre and post design, would that be confusing in terms of phrasing? And also we wondered if the group had any comments or thoughts on the commentary piece and how that might be wrote, considering it's 2 kind of pieces, but we'd also, as care leavers, we would also like to feed in some of our research, but I suppose we would like to know if anybody has used this before, and maybe with the non-academic piece, if they have had any authors or different pieces, or how they might write commentary pieces or reflections at the end of the chapter. So if anybody has any thoughts on that, that will be great for feedback for us. Again, my email is there if anybody, would like to email, or different papers or whatever else might come up for them, or to keep in contact with this chapter as well. Feel free to email. So thanks very much. That's me.
Thank you, Róisín, and everybody else working on your chapter. I'm really looking forward to read this book. I feel it's so interesting and relevant and important themes you all raise. And you also had some important questions. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on them, or have some questions for you. We have some time for that. Please raise your hand or write in the chat. Or it's kind of complex questions, I think, so maybe people have to think a little bit too. But I like your commentary idea. I think that I've read books with that, and I think that will work. Mm-hmm.
Hi, Dr. Farragher. It's JP. How are you? So I really do appreciate that. I think one of the big things that we are asking folks to really comment on is how we can be helpful in commentary, right? Like, one of the big things that we've talked about as a group is how care leavers are often we don't always have a seat at the table when it comes to being researchers or being part of the kind of the academy. And so what is it that, as people who have dual roles, might be helpful for our colleagues to read, right? Like, we don't want to write commentary that's just commentary. We do want things that our colleagues can think about. And so how might that be best accomplished, I guess, is really the question.
Mm-hmm. And an important and a good question, I think. And in a way, I think you are the best to answer it with your dual identity. what are other researchers missing out? Maybe you know more about that, and yeah, talk for myself what I'm missing out, not having that identity. But I think it's something we also can discuss when we're talking about the book.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose we should have a meeting with the authors. Bernie, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just the comments making me think about the issue of identities and how it runs across many of the different presentations we've heard about. Reminded me of the peer researchers we worked with on our Northern Irish study. A couple of them talked about how being part of the project and interviewing other young people leaving care had led to them reframing their own notion of their care identity and their understanding of their own experience. So there's something personal about the process as well as the academic research aspect.
Absolutely. I think everybody who cares about their research, even from a researcher's perspective, is somewhat shaped by their research in itself. And I think, you know, for those of you who are maybe early starting out in your PhDs, it's really good to look at that reflection piece and that reflexivity, and even the pieces that Sharmaz and stuff would talk about in constructionism and how we know what we know and the position we even take, you know, and the questions we ask and how that influences an actual interview as well. So I think it's really important on that. I'm also wondering as well, would a checklist be useful to other researchers? You know, is that something, especially those of you who are maybe starting off earlier in your careers and, you know, maybe in your PhDs now, because we understand as well also that the middle part sometimes is often set out for us. So it's set out by funding, or it's set out by certain things that we have to tick the box and we have to do certain things within that, and we're bound by protocols and stuff. But I suppose the initial process and the ending, we are hoping to write something around a checklist on that. And I just wonder if you had any thoughts about that.
Ingrid, do you want to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to ask a question, because I have been talking to people about this in different ways now, and I don't know quite how to address it. But I also think that there is an issue doing the research that I have done now with disabled care leavers that are so far away from, I feel they are so far away from every kind of participation, so to speak. So sometimes when I meet like the care leavers organizations and I sometimes feel that there even is a gap within those organizations, so to speak. So how to deal with representation within the group of peers? Do you understand what I mean? I think this is a big issue, and I don't know how to address it, but I really I'm a little bit concerned, because when I talk to the people I talk to, I just realized that they were so far away from everything somehow. So it was really to me that was a very big concern.
Yeah, and I think and Petra is not here, but I know she was talking about in our previous meetings about even gatekeepers and how they might decide even who you interview, and that even is in a process in itself, and the capacity in which they might be supported if they are, you know, if they do get upset and they do disclose, and how they're supported within that, but also their capacity of being left a few months after, and then they realize, oh, I've said this in an interview and now I don't want to say it, and you know, then they're left with that. So I suppose absolutely this piece is really about minding and really emphasizing the care in care leaving in the research realm, you know. Yeah.
I suppose it's maybe kind of difficult to discuss this further in this room, but it's really important questions, and hopefully we can discuss it other places as well. And there is a question in the chat, but I'm not sure if anybody has seen that, from Julie Carter. Data collection from non-speaking autistic care leavers and other neurodiverse groups. Do they have communication partners? Is the research available on this? What types of AAC are being used? I see that we have to leave the breakout rooms very soon, so I will then you have the questions in mind, and I would like to say thank you to all the presenters and thank you for being here, and I hope we can continue some of these important discussions later on. So, and we will see you in the big room soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.